You want to go all the way back. I mean, there's been, there was the yellow pages and the white pages, when we were growing up, and we were using those, and those were the first data vendors ever, right? I'm basically just a data nerd. Specifically, when I say data, I mean to be contacts and company information. So I started at Microsoft, out of college, PM at OneNote, Discover.org, which is now ZoomInfo. One of the first data engineers there, first data scientist, People Data Labs. I went to Gorgeous after that, Charm.io, and now started ExactBuyer. You want to go all the way back. I mean, there's been, there was the yellow pages and the white pages, when we were growing up, and we were using those, and those were the first data vendors ever, right? And you could say, Equifax and those other company list building companies. Dun & Bradstreet, certainly some of those older companies, but they sort of come in waves. There's the Dun & Bradstreets, the Equifaxes. Then in the 2000s, there's some other companies started to come around, like the Discover.orgs and the ZoomInfos of the world. And typically what happens is those got consolidated, right? And then you sort of saw the WrapLeafs and the Clearbits and Full Contact and all these other API services start to come around. In the Wild West, I mean, even when I joined Discover.org, it was very interesting to me because they had 300 people basically calling you up and saying, "Hey, John, is this still your phone number?" Yes, like mark it in the database, like this is still John's phone number. And that's how they verified all the information, right? They would actually email and call people, and that's how they would manually verify. Not a scalable process at all. At the time, I think they had like 4 million contacts in their database because they could only, they had hundreds and hundreds of people in the office around me, doing this manual task. So that kind of blew my mind when I first joined, because I was just like, hey, there has to be a better way. It's 2017. I know like deep learning is a thing, and like there's lots of very sophisticated ways, even unsophisticated ways of doing this better. And I think that's interesting to see how we've sort of progressed even in 5 years from a place where we had people at a company that's making over $100 million a year in revenue, having people manually update a database, to now a system where a small company like ours can do all of that with a handful of engineers. So the way to understand and classify companies and get data at scale has never been easier than it has today. It's pretty awesome. I mean, obviously, like as a data person, like you can't just like throw garbage in there and be like, I have a petabyte of just like complete garbage. Like it's wonderful. I think if it's relevant data, it certainly can be made more useful now than ever before. People are sort of trying to make something old look new. I mean, if you think about Equifax, right, and Experian and all these companies, right, it's like they're selling data about you to companies, right? They're helping businesses get credit scores, right, and they're analyzing those businesses and trying to say, should a bank give them a loan, right? So they sell that data to banks to help them analyze how much they should underwrite, and different data providers will sell data to different industries, right? There's certain data providers that only sell to insurance industries to help them to understand how to underwrite, business insurance for very specific places. If you're, for instance, I'll give you an example. If you're doing construction, right, and you might get business insurance that says, like, if you say, hey, I do, plumbing and I only work on ranches, like I'm never doing roofs, right? I'm never on a roof, so like I don't need that level of insurance, right? But then on your like Instagram is like a picture of you like on a roof, like drinking a beer, right? So like now that company might want that Instagram data of your business to be like, is there any pictures of anyone on a roof, right? And that can tell them information that they would then sell to these insurance companies and say, hey, maybe you should be careful about this, or the level of risk might be higher than you think it is, right? So maybe up the premium just a hair, yeah, because they're spending too many pictures of beers on roofs. That's absolutely the future, and if it's not happening already, it'll happen in the next couple of years. I think if we're talking about stances on like what data is going to be used or people think is acceptable. My stance is like anything you put publicly about yourself is fair game for anyone to see. I think I don't know a lot of people who have a lot crazier versions, which is like any data that exists about you, private or public, like it's fair game. I don't know if I feel very much like on that end of it. But I do think that people will always want to be found, right? Companies will always want to be found, right? No one, by virtue of being a company. So I think it's less about, I think we'll constantly think about what data we're going to be sharing, but at the end of the day, people want to be found, and we need to come up with better ways to help companies and people get found.